The wolf should have torn her apart. Instead, it lifted its head just enough to look at her. Golden eyes. Not the eyes of a beast. The eyes of someone begging not to be abandoned. Rain washed blood into the mud as a silver spear pinned the massive black wolf to the forest floor. Every ragged breath grew weaker. Somewhere beyond the trees, hunting horns echoed closer. Whoever had done this was coming back to finish the job. Every story Luna had ever heard warned her to run from creatures like this. They slaughtered villages. They hunted omegas. They never showed mercy. Yet this one hadn't tried to bite her. It hadn't even growled. Its gaze never left hers, as if it recognized her. Her hands shook as she reached for the spear. One pull. One mistake. And the creature everyone feared could rip her apart before her next heartbeat. She pulled anyway. The spear slid free. The wolf didn't attack. The storm did. A blinding surge of light erupted through the forest. Ancient markings ignited beneath the wolf's blood, and the ground itself trembled beneath Luna's knees. Then the impossible happened. The beast looked straight into her eyes. And spoke her name. The kingdom believed its alpha king had died that night. They had no idea he had just awakened beside the one person fate had forbidden him to find. Rain did not fall over Blackwood Forest. It attacked. Sheets of icy water crashed through towering pines, turning ancient roots into rivers of mud, while thunder rolled so deeply across the mountains that even the oldest trees seemed to tremble beneath its voice. Blackwood had always been a place people feared. Children were warned that the forest swallowed those foolish enough to wander beyond the stone shrines marking its borders. Hunters spoke of glowing crimson eyes watching silently between the trees. Travelers claimed the wind itself whispered forgotten names before dragging souls into endless darkness. Tonight, even the monsters were hiding, because something far more terrifying had entered the forest. A black wolf. Not merely large. Impossible. Its massive body crashed through branches thick as castle pillars, every desperate step leaving crimson stains across the soaked earth. Rain streamed over fur darker than midnight, but nothing could wash away the blood pouring from the silver spear embedded deep inside its chest. Its breathing came in violent, uneven growls. Each inhale felt stolen. Each exhale carried unbearable pain. The silver weapon burned beneath its flesh, spreading pale veins across powerful muscles as ancient alpha magic fought desperately against the poison forged specifically to kill kings. The wolf stumbled. Its enormous body slammed into an ancient oak whose roots twisted like skeletal fingers across the hillside. For a long moment, it simply lay there, motionless, its crimson eyes slowly closing against the weight of exhaustion. Far beyond the forest, torches danced through rain as armored riders disappeared toward the capital. None looked back. None questioned whether their prey had truly died. Lady Seraphine's assassins had absolute faith in cursed silver. No alpha had ever survived it. Not even a king. Silence returned to the forest. Broken only by another sound. Soft footsteps. Gentle. Careful. Almost hesitant. Lyra Ashwin stepped between dripping branches with a woven basket resting against her hip. Her cloak clung to her small frame, heavy with rain, while strands of chestnut hair escaped beneath her hood. She should never have been here. Every sensible person in her village had begged her to wait until sunrise. Moon herbs only bloomed during storms. Moon herbs also grew inside Blackwood. Fear had become part of her life long ago. She had simply learned how to walk beside it. She knelt beside a cluster of glowing silver flowers nestled beneath moss-covered stones. Their petals shimmered faintly despite the darkness. Exactly as her grandmother had described. A tiny smile crossed her face. Until something growled. Not loudly. Weakly. Painfully. Her hands froze. Every instinct screamed at her to run. The sound came again. Closer. Not a predator hunting. A creature suffering. She swallowed hard. Slowly rising, she followed broken branches deeper into the forest. Each step made her heart beat louder. The air changed. The scent of rain gave way to iron. Blood. So much blood. She rounded the trunk of an ancient oak. And stopped breathing. The wolf. It was unlike anything stories had prepared her for. Its body dwarfed horses. Its black fur seemed to drink every fragment of moonlight. Old scars crossed its shoulders like memories carved into flesh by forgotten wars. Yet none of that terrified her as much as its eyes. Not because they glowed. Because they looked tired. Not savage. Not hungry. Lonely. The wolf lifted its head weakly. Its lips curled just enough to reveal enormous white fangs. One warning. Leave. Now. Lyra's legs refused to move. The silver spear protruding from its chest trembled every time the creature struggled to breathe. She understood wounds. She understood pain. This animal. No. This being. Was dying. Who did this to you? She whispered. The wolf released a low growl. Not threatening. Almost. Ashamed. Rain continued washing blood across exposed roots. Lyra slowly lowered herself onto her knees several steps away. I won't hurt you. The wolf's crimson gaze never left hers. Its breathing slowed. Not because the pain lessened. Because curiosity replaced instinct. No one approached predators willingly. Especially not omegas. Something ancient stirred beneath its consciousness. A scent. Soft as moonlight. Warm like spring after endless winter. The beast inside it, forever consumed by rage, became strangely quiet. Lyra noticed the spear. Silver. Covered with strange runes. Her grandmother's warnings echoed inside her mind. Never touch cursed silver. Never approach a dying wolf. Never interfere with fate. She looked back into those exhausted crimson eyes. Compassion defeated fear. I'm sorry. She reached forward. The wolf tensed. Every muscle tightened. One wrong movement. One flash of instinct. And she would die before screaming. Her fingers wrapped around the cold shaft. The metal burned her skin instantly. Ancient symbols flared crimson. The wolf roared. The entire forest shook. Birds exploded from distant trees. Lightning illuminated the mountains. Still, Lyra did not let go. With trembling arms, she pulled. The spear tore free. Blood erupted across rain-soaked earth. The wolf threw back its head. And the world changed. Silver light burst from the wound instead of darkness. Moonlight flooded the forest despite storm clouds swallowing the sky. Ancient symbols awakened beneath forgotten stones. Flowers bloomed instantly. The wind stopped. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Beneath Lyra's collarbone, hidden beneath soaked clothing, a crescent-shaped birthmark began glowing. Across the wolf's chest, beneath blood and black fur, the exact same mark ignited. Neither of them noticed. The light disappeared as quickly as it had arrived. The wolf collapsed again. But this time, its breathing steadied. Slowly. Painfully. Alive. Lyra pressed healing herbs against the wound with shaking hands. You'll live, she whispered, tears mixing with rain. You have to. The wolf stared at her. Not as prey. Not as an enemy. As if trying desperately to remember something forgotten centuries ago. Before dawn painted the eastern horizon, strength slowly returned to its enormous body. It rose. Unsteady. Powerful. Its crimson gaze lingered on the girl one final moment. Then it disappeared into the endless forest without a sound. Lyra watched until darkness swallowed its silhouette. Only then did she notice the strange warmth beneath her collarbone. She pressed trembling fingers against the glowing skin. The light vanished instantly. Far away, hidden inside abandoned ruins deep beneath Blackwood, the black wolf collapsed once more. Its body twisted violently. Bones cracked. Fur withdrew. A man emerged from the transformation. Tall. Scarred. Broad-shouldered. His long black hair clung to his face as blood continued pouring from the healing wound. Alpha King Kael Draven opened his crimson eyes. For the first time in years. The beast inside him was silent. Only one scent remained. Rain. Moonflowers. And the mysterious Omega who had reached into death itself without fear. He closed his eyes. Then whispered into the darkness. Find her. Outside the ruins, hundreds of shadow wolves lifted their heads toward the storm. Before my enemies do. And unseen by either of them, high within the royal palace, Lady Seraphine smiled as a raven landed on her window carrying impossible news. The king had survived. Morning arrived quietly, yet peace never followed dawn inside Blackwood. Mist drifted through the towering pines like wandering spirits, wrapping the forest in a pale veil that softened every shadow while making each silence feel heavier. The rain had finally stopped, but droplets still clung to every branch, falling one by one into crystal pools beneath the roots. Lyra walked home alone. Her woven basket was filled with moon herbs, though she barely remembered gathering them. Her thoughts refused to leave the wounded black wolf. Every few steps she found herself looking back, expecting those crimson eyes to appear once more, expecting the impossible. But the forest had swallowed every trace of him. Only flattened grass and dried blood remained where destiny had quietly changed the course of 2 lives. She pressed her fingers against the strange warmth beneath her collarbone. The crescent-shaped birthmark no longer glowed. Perhaps exhaustion had made her imagine everything. Perhaps the storm had. She tried convincing herself that she had simply saved a wounded animal. Nothing more. Yet deep inside her chest, something felt different. Not fear. Not relief. Recognition. As though someone she had never met had quietly taken residence inside her heart. Far beyond the forest, towering obsidian walls rose against the grey morning sky. Castle Draven, the heart of the kingdom. Its black banners fluttered beneath cold winds while thousands of soldiers lined the stone courtyards in perfect silence. No celebration greeted their king's return. Only disbelief. The enormous throne room stood empty except for a handful of trusted commanders waiting beneath stained glass windows depicting ancient Alpha victories. Heavy doors groaned open. King Kael Draven entered. Every step echoed through the chamber. His silver armor was shattered. His cloak hung in torn strips behind him. Fresh blood still seeped through bandages beneath his chest. Yet no wound commanded attention like his eyes. For years they had burned with endless fury. Today, something restrained them. General Rowan immediately knelt. "Your Majesty, we believed you dead." So did they. Kael's voice remained calm. Too calm. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Only those closest to the throne understood what cursed silver truly meant. No Alpha survived it. No one. Yet their king stood before them alive. Barely. Kael approached the massive throne but never Saturday. Instead he looked toward the shattered spear resting upon a velvet cloth. The silver weapon had already begun turning black. Its enchantments had failed. Or someone had broken them. His fingers unconsciously brushed the healing scar beneath his chest. He remembered pain. Rain. Moonlight. Soft hands stained with blood. Then, her eyes. Not frightened. Not worshipful. Simply kind. Why? Why would an Omega risk death for a monster she believed to be nothing more than a wounded beast? The question unsettled him more than the assassination itself. A king understood ambition. Fear. Greed. Mercy. He had stopped believing in long ago. Several floors above the throne room, Lady Seraphine Voss watched ravens circle outside her balcony. She wore crimson silk that flowed behind her like fresh blood, every movement elegant enough to hide the venom beneath. A servant knelt before her. The king survived. "I know." The assassins swear the spear pierced his heart. It did. The servant hesitated. Then, how? Seraphine slowly turned. A smile touched her lips. It never reached her eyes. Kings do not survive cursed silver. Her fingers gently stroked the raven perched upon the balcony railing. They are saved. Silence settled. The implication struck the servant instantly. Someone had interfered. Someone powerful. Someone foolish enough to heal the black wolf. Seraphine's smile deepened. Find whoever entered Blackwood during last night's storm. And if they resist? They won't. Her eyes narrowed toward the distant mountains. They won't even know why they're being hunted. 3 days later, the peaceful mountain village of Elder Hollow awakened to unfamiliar sounds. Steel. Horse hooves. Military horns. Villagers rushed outside as nearly 50 royal soldiers entered through the narrow valley road. Children hid behind frightened mothers. Doors slammed shut. No one welcomed the king's army. At the front rode General Rowan. His expression revealed nothing. "We investigate reports of forbidden magic." Whispers spread immediately. Forbidden magic. The words alone ruined families. Lyra felt cold despite the summer morning. Her grandmother stepped beside her. "Don't speak unless questioned." Lyra nodded. Still, she couldn't stop wondering. Could they somehow know about the wolf? Impossible. No one had seen her. Miles away, another rider approached the village alone. His horse moved silently. Its armor carried no royal crest. Only a black wolf. Kael had come himself. Not as king. As hunter. He ignored every protest from his advisors. If someone had healed him, he needed answers no soldier could obtain. More importantly, he needed to understand why thoughts of a mysterious girl had followed him every waking moment since Blackwood. This made no sense. Soul bonds were myths. Mercy was weakness. Yet every transformation since that night had become easier. The beast inside him listened whenever her memory surfaced. Impossible. And dangerous. The village square stood frozen. Soldiers questioned herbalists. Inspected medicines. Examined dried flowers. Then, Kael saw her. She knelt beside an injured fawn, carefully wrapping its broken leg with strips of clean linen while speaking softly enough that even the frightened animal relaxed. The world became strangely quiet. The same chestnut hair. The same gentle eyes. The same scent. Moonflowers. Rain. Home. His wolf surged violently beneath his skin. Mine. The word echoed through his mind so fiercely that Kael nearly staggered. He clenched his fists until blood appeared beneath his nails. Control. He had mastered the beast for decades. Why now? Why her? Lyra slowly looked up. Their eyes met. Everything inside her stopped. Those crimson eyes. She knew them. The wolf. The impossible realization struck so suddenly that her breathing faltered. No. It couldn't be. This was the Alpha King. The Black Wolf of Ashen Vale. The most feared ruler alive. Yet, she would never forget those eyes. She had looked directly into them while pulling death from his chest. Neither moved. The entire village seemed to disappear. Only silence remained between them. Kael approached. Every villager instinctively lowered their gaze. Lyra couldn't. She searched his face for confirmation. For denial. For anything. His expression remained carved from stone. "You are the village healer." It wasn't a question. "Yes, Your Majesty." "You entered Blackwood 3 nights ago." Her heartbeat stumbled. "I gather herbs there." "Alone?" "Yes." He studied her carefully. Looking for deception. Looking for fear. Instead he found quiet sadness. And something else. His curse. Faded. Not completely. Just enough that the constant roar inside his mind softened into distant thunder. It happened only when she stood near. His wolf grew calmer. Stronger. As though merely breathing the same air restored something ancient inside him. Lyra noticed it too. The terrifying pressure surrounding the Alpha King weakened. The suffocating aura every legend described. Simply disappeared. Neither understood why. Neither dared speak it aloud. Their silent exchange ended abruptly. A scream shattered the morning. The forest exploded with snarling shadows. Half-starved rogue wolves burst through the tree line, driven mad by strange crimson veins glowing beneath their fur. They weren't hunting food. They were hunting people. Panic erupted instantly. Children cried. Villagers scattered. Soldiers raised shields. Kael stepped forward. Power erupted around him. Invisible alpha aura swept across the square like a tidal wave. Most wolves collapsed instantly. But the infected beasts kept charging. Something was terribly wrong. Kael drew his sword. The beast inside him answered. Too eagerly. Pain tore through his body. His crimson eyes brightened. Dark veins spread beneath his skin. "No," he whispered. "Not here. Not before civilians. Not again." His control slipped. The curse welcomed violence. Bones began cracking beneath his armor. Villagers screamed. The king is transforming. Lyra saw terror spreading faster than the wolves. If Kael lost control, everyone would die. Without thinking, she ran toward him. "Stop!" Rowan shouted. She ignored him. Kael barely recognized her approach. His vision blurred beneath overwhelming instinct. Destroy. Kill. Consume. Then, a warm hand gently touched his wrist. Everything stopped. No magic circle appeared. No dramatic light. Only silence. Pure. Complete. Silence. His breathing steadied. The beast retreated. The unbearable rage dissolved beneath the quiet warmth radiating from Lyra's touch. She whispered softly enough that only he could hear. "You don't have to fight alone." The words pierced deeper than any spear. For years, no one had asked whether the monster were suffering. They had only feared him. Kael slowly fell to one knee. Not in defeat. In relief. The villagers stared in stunned disbelief. The Black Wolf King, kneeling before an omega, hidden behind the branches overlooking the village. Lady Seraphine watched the impossible scene unfold. Her beautiful face remained perfectly composed. Only her eyes betrayed the fury consuming her. "So," she whispered, "the curse obeys her." A cold smile slowly appeared. "Then she dies first." Far below, Lyra looked into Kael's crimson eyes once more, completely unaware that, before sunset, the kingdom would brand her a traitor. The journey to Castle Draven lasted 5 days. 5 days of winding mountain roads swallowed by fog. 5 nights beneath skies that never seemed to brighten. Not once during the entire journey did Lyra truly feel like a prisoner. Yet she never felt free. The royal carriage was luxurious enough to rival noble estates, lined with dark velvet and polished silver, but soldiers surrounded it from every direction. Their formation never broke. Their eyes never wandered. Protection and captivity looked frighteningly alike. Outside, villagers stopped their work whenever the king's procession passed. Some bowed. Some hid. Others stared directly at the carriage carrying the mysterious Omega beside their feared king. Rumors traveled faster than horses. The Black Wolf had spared a village healer. The Black Wolf had knelt before an Omega. The Black Wolf had smiled. Each version sounded more impossible than the last. Inside the carriage, silence ruled. Kael sat opposite Lyra, his broad shoulders filling the narrow space. His expression remained carved from stone, but unlike the terrifying figure painted in every legend, there was no cruelty in his gaze. Only distance. Lyra kept her hands folded tightly in her lap. Every few moments she caught herself studying him. The scar beneath his collar had almost completely healed. She had caused that. No. She had prevented his death. The realization still refused to feel real. Finally, Kael broke the silence. "You've been staring." Lyra quickly lowered her eyes. "I was checking your wound. It no longer hurts." She nodded quietly. "That's good." Silence returned. It should have been awkward. Instead, it felt strangely peaceful. Kael hated that. Peace had become unfamiliar. Danger made sense. Politics made sense. Betrayal made sense. But sitting across from a quiet Omega who expected nothing from him, unsettled him far more than any battlefield ever had. His wolf stirred. Not violently. Contentedly. That frightened him. Castle Draven emerged through the morning mist like a mountain carved from darkness. Its towers pierced heavy clouds. Massive black walls stretched endlessly across the cliffs, while hundreds of crimson banners snapped violently beneath freezing winds. The castle looked less like a home, and more like a warning. Lyra's breath caught. She had never imagined anything so enormous. The gates slowly opened. The sound echoed across the valley like thunder. As the procession entered, thousands of eyes turned toward them. Knights stopped training. Servants paused mid-step. Noble women lowered jeweled fans to whisper behind elegant smiles. Every gaze found Lyra. Every whisper followed her. "That's her. The Omega." The village girl. The one who bewitched the king. She hadn't even stepped from the carriage before judgment surrounded her. High above the courtyard, Lady Seraphine watched from a marble balcony. She wore deep crimson silk embroidered with silver wolves, a calculated reminder that she had stood beside Kael for nearly a decade. She had advised him, protected his throne, helped shape his kingdom. She knew every scar hidden beneath his armor. Or so she believed. Then one nameless Omega had appeared. And suddenly the king returned from death looking at someone else the way he had never looked at her. Not with love. Something more dangerous. Hope. Seraphine's fingers tightened around the stone railing. Hope made rulers weak. Weak rulers lost kingdoms. She refused to let that happen. Even if she had to burn the kingdom herself. The palace was breathtaking. Golden chandeliers illuminated endless marble corridors. Massive stained glass windows painted wolves beneath full moons. Ancient tapestries depicted alpha kings conquering entire continents. Everything spoke of power. Nothing spoke of warmth. Lyra followed quietly behind Kael. Servants bowed deeply before him. No one spoke unless commanded. No one smiled. Even children disappeared whenever the king approached. She suddenly understood why stories described him as a monster. Not because of what he did. Because no one dared see him as anything else. Her assigned chamber overlooked the northern cliffs. It was larger than the entire cottage she had grown up in. Soft velvet curtains framed enormous windows. Fresh flowers stood upon polished tables. Silk dresses had already been prepared inside carved wardrobes. Luxury surrounded her from every direction. Yet she had never felt lonelier. She stood before the window watching snow drift over distant mountains. "They're beautiful." A maid quietly entered carrying tea. "They're called the King's Cliffs." Lyra smiled gently. "I've never seen mountains this high." The maid hesitated. "You shouldn't stand near the windows." "Why?" "The nobles can see this room from the eastern gardens." Lyra frowned. "So?" The maid lowered her voice. "They're already looking for reasons to hate you." She discovered the truth that same evening. The royal banquet glittered beneath thousands of candles. Crystal chandeliers scattered golden light across polished floors while musicians played melodies soft enough to disguise whispered conspiracies. Nobles dressed in jewels worth entire villages. Generals wore ceremonial armor. Foreign ambassadors observed everything. And at the center of the endless hall sat Alpha King Kael. His black ceremonial robes carried silver embroidery shaped like wolves running beneath the moon. A living symbol of absolute authority. Beside him, an empty chair. For Lyra. The room fell silent as she entered. Hundreds of eyes followed every uncertain step. She could almost hear their thoughts. An Omega. Beside the king. Impossible. She slowly Saturday. Every heartbeat echoed louder than the orchestra. Kael noticed. Without looking toward her, he quietly moved a glass of water closer. A tiny gesture. Barely noticeable. Yet it sent another wave of whispers through the hall. Seraphine saw everything. Her smile remained flawless. Inside, jealousy twisted into something poisonous. Dinner had barely begun when the attack started. Not swords. Words. Far sharper. A noblewoman raised her whine. "Your Majesty, we've heard remarkable stories." Kael continued eating. "What stories?" "That this village healer possesses unusual influence." Laughter rippled softly across the tables. Another noble joined. "They say even wild beasts obey her." Another smiled. "Perhaps that's why the king has become so merciful lately." The room watched Kael carefully. Waiting. Testing. He placed his fork down. The sound alone silenced the laughter. "Continue." The noble swallowed. "I merely wondered whether common healers now advise the crown." Kael's crimson eyes slowly lifted. "If they possess wisdom." The noble immediately looked away. Conversation resumed. But not the whispers. Never the whispers. Lyra stared down at her untouched meal. She had become the kingdom's newest entertainment. Days turned into weeks. Life inside the palace became a battlefield fought with smiles. Servants accidentally spilled wine across her dresses. Invitations mysteriously vanished. False rumors spread through every corridor. Some claimed she practiced forbidden moon magic. Others insisted she had seduced the king using omega pheromones. No accusation required proof, only repetition. Yet something unexpected happened. The people who actually knew Lyra began loving her. She treated wounded guards herself instead of ordering servants. She remembered every stable boy's name. She stayed awake through freezing nights comforting frightened children whose parents served the palace. The cooks found herbs left anonymously beside exhausted workers. No one saw her place them there. The maids did. Slowly, quietly, the palace itself began choosing sides. Kael noticed first. The guards smiled more often. Arguments between servants became rare. Even the royal wolves resting beneath the castle sought Lyra's presence whenever she walked the gardens. One evening he found her sitting beneath the ancient moon tree. A wounded raven rested peacefully in her lap. "You healed it." She looked up. It only needed patience. It bit 3 servants. It was afraid. Kael stood silently beside her. The kingdom believes fear creates loyalty. Lyra gently stroked the raven's feathers. "No." She smiled sadly. "Fear creates obedience." Her words settled heavily between them. Loyalty grows where people feel safe. Kael looked toward the distant city. For years he had ruled through strength. Justice. Discipline. Never safety. Could she truly see what he never had? He found himself watching her instead of the kingdom. Without realizing it. He smiled. A small one. Barely noticeable. But genuine. Hidden behind marble columns. Seraphine witnessed everything. The smile. The softness. The impossible warmth inside the king's eyes. Her nails dug into her palms until blood appeared. Enough. If kindness could not separate them, then suspicion would. That same night, a hooded messenger slipped through secret passages beneath the palace. Forged royal letters changed hands. Wax seals identical to enemy kingdoms were pressed carefully into parchment. Each sentence crafted with surgical precision. Every lie believable. Every accusation devastating. Before dawn, evidence existed proving Lyra had secretly exchanged messages with foreign enemies long before meeting the king. None of it was real. All of it looked authentic. Seraphine folded the final letter. "This," she whispered, "is how kingdoms truly fall." Meanwhile, completely unaware of the trap closing around her, Lyra stood alone beneath the moonlit balcony outside her chamber. The crescent mark beneath her collarbone suddenly glowed again. Across the castle, Kael's identical mark answered. Both paused simultaneously. Both looked toward the same moon. Neither understood why their hearts suddenly beat as one. And hidden inside the palace archives, a forgotten historian stared in horror at an ancient prophecy he had just uncovered. His trembling fingers traced a faded sentence written hundreds of years before. "When the Moon Queen finds the Black Wolf King, the throne will either be saved by love or consumed by betrayal." The morning of Lyra's trial arrived without sunlight. Thick grey clouds hung above Castle Draven, swallowing the sky so completely that dawn looked no different from midnight. The palace bells rang 13 slow times instead of 12, a forgotten tradition reserved only for accusations of high treason. Every echo felt like a funeral. Only no one yet knew whose funeral it would become. The grand hall overflowed with nobles dressed in black and silver. Generals lined the marble walls. Priests stood beneath towering statues of ancient Alpha kings, their solemn expressions concealing quiet curiosity. Everyone had come to witness the downfall of the mysterious Omega. At the center of the hall stood Lyra. She wore no jewels, no royal silks, only the simple pale blue dress she had arrived in weeks earlier. Her hands remained folded calmly before her. Not because she wasn't afraid. Because fear had exhausted itself long ago. Across the hall, Alpha King Kael sat upon the obsidian throne. His face revealed nothing. Inside, chaos raged. The forged letters had been examined by every royal scholar. The seals were genuine. The handwriting appeared authentic. The evidence was perfect. Too perfect. Yet perfection was difficult to challenge. A king ruled by proof, not instinct. Even if every instinct inside him screamed that something was terribly wrong. Lady Seraphine stepped gracefully into the center of the chamber. Every movement carried effortless confidence. She bowed deeply before the throne. "Your Majesty." Kael's voice remained cold. "Present your evidence." A servant carried forward an ornate wooden chest. Inside rested dozens of sealed letters, maps, royal insignias, enemy military routes. Everything pointed toward one conclusion. The room held its breath. Seraphine slowly lifted the first letter. "It grieves me more than words can express." She paused dramatically, to reveal that Lady Lyra Ashwin has secretly communicated with the kingdom of Viridis. Whispers erupted instantly. Another letter followed. Then another. Each one carefully crafted. Each accusation more devastating than the last. Plans to weaken border defenses. Hidden routes into the capital. Detailed descriptions of the king's declining health. Every lie wrapped itself around truth so skillfully that no ordinary eye could separate one from the other. Lyra listened in stunned silence. "I've never seen those letters." Her voice barely carried across the hall. Seraphine turned toward her with heartbreaking sympathy. "Of course you would say that." "I didn't." "You deny your own handwriting." "I've written nothing." Another noble stood. "The evidence speaks for itself." "It doesn't." Lyra looked desperately toward Kael. For the first time since arriving at the palace, she truly needed him. Their eyes met. Everything around them disappeared. The whispers. The accusations. The staring nobles. None of it mattered. Only that single moment. Kael wanted to stand. To walk down those steps. To tear every forged letter apart. To tell the kingdom he trusted the woman before him more than ink on paper. But another memory surfaced. His mother's blood-soaking palace floors. Her final words. "A king who ignores evidence destroys his own kingdom." Duty. Or trust. King. Or man. He had spent his entire life choosing duty. His heart begged him. Just once. Choose differently. His crown demanded otherwise. The silence stretched painfully. Lyra understood before he spoke. "I." Kael's voice caught for the first time in years. The hall noticed. He steadied himself. "Until the investigation concludes." Another pause. Longer this time. "Lyra Ashwin is stripped of royal protection." The words landed harder than any blade. Something inside Lyra quietly shattered. Not because she feared punishment. Because he hadn't believed her. She had walked into death to save him. She had stood beside him when everyone else feared him. She had trusted him without hesitation. And when her turn came, he hesitated. That hesitation broke her heart more completely than betrayal itself. She lowered her eyes. "I understand." She didn't cry. She didn't scream. That somehow hurt Kael even more. The trial should have ended there. Instead, the doors burst open. An elderly palace historian stumbled inside, clutching ancient scrolls against his chest. "Your Majesty." Guards immediately blocked his path. "I must speak." Kael frowned. "What is it?" The old man fell to one knee. "I found records concerning the Moon Queen." Seraphine's heartbeat skipped. "Not now. Not today." The historian struggled to breathe. "The prophecy." Seraphine acted before another word escaped. One subtle movement. A hidden signal. A crossbow bolt flew silently from the crowded balcony. The old scholar collapsed. The scrolls scattered across polished marble. Blood spread beneath trembling fingers. His final breath escaped as little more than a whisper. "Don't separate them." Silence consumed the hall. The assassin had already disappeared. No one understood what had happened. Except Seraphine. And perhaps Kael. His crimson eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Something about this felt planned. Too convenient. Too precise. But suspicion was not proof. Again. Proof. Always proof. That evening. The sentence was announced. Not execution. Exile. Beyond the Frost Mountains. Beyond the kingdom's borders. Beyond every place protected by the crown. Far enough that if enemies found her, no one would intervene. Lyra accepted the judgment without resistance. As guards escorted her through endless palace corridors, servants quietly looked away. Some wiped tears. Others secretly placed bread, herbs, and blankets into her travel pack when soldiers weren't watching. Acts of rebellion measured in kindness. None spoke. Words had become dangerous. Snow began falling before she reached the northern gate. Kael stood alone upon the highest tower. Watching. Unable to move. Every instinct demanded he stop this. His wolf paced violently inside his mind. Go after her. Protect her. She's ours. No. He whispered. His fists tightened against frozen stone. If she's innocent. The words tasted like ash. I'll bring her back. The wolf roared inside him. Too late. Lyra climbed into the waiting carriage. She looked back only once. Toward the castle. Toward the tower. Toward the silhouette she knew was watching. Their eyes met across impossible distance. Neither waved. Neither smiled. Nothing remained to say. The carriage disappeared into the snow. Kael stood there until night consumed the road completely. Only then did something strange happen. Pain exploded through his chest. Not physical. Something deeper. He collapsed to one knee, struggling to breathe. The crescent mark beneath his collarbone burned like molten silver. Across the mountains. Lyra suddenly grabbed her own chest. The same mark glowed beneath her skin. Miles apart. They felt each other's suffering. Neither understood why. 3 days later, Lyra's escort reached the Frost Mountains. The soldiers removed her chains. One quietly handed back the small pouch of healing herbs confiscated during her arrest. For what it's worth. The veteran avoided her eyes. I don't believe you betrayed him. She smiled sadly. Neither do I. He almost laughed. Almost. Then turned away. The escort left without another word. Lyra stood alone. Before her stretched endless white wilderness. Jagged mountains pierced the clouds like broken teeth. The wind howled across frozen valleys with the voices of forgotten spirits. There were no villages. No roads. Only silence. And survival. She took one slow step forward. Then another. Each footprint vanished beneath falling snow. Night arrived quickly. Too quickly. The temperature plummeted. Her fingers lost feeling. Her breathing became shallow clouds of white. She stumbled across hidden ice. Fell. Rose again. The mountains offered no mercy. Hours passed. Her strength faded. Darkness crept into the edges of her vision. Perhaps. This was where exile ended. Not with execution. Simply. Being forgotten. She collapsed beside a frozen cliff. Snow slowly covered her cloak. Her eyes drifted shut. Then. The earth trembled. Low. Ancient. Powerful. Massive stone doors hidden beneath centuries of ice slowly opened inside the mountainside. Moonlight spilled from within. Not ordinary light. Silver. Warm. Alive. Tall figures stepped into the storm. Women clad in shimmering armor carved from crystal. Their white hair flowed without wind. Their eyes glowed like the full moon itself. The leader knelt beside Lyra. Her expression filled with disbelief. After centuries. They had finally found her. She gently brushed snow away from Lyra's collarbone. The glowing crescent mark illuminated the darkness. The ancient guardian whispered with trembling reverence. The last moon queen has returned. Far away. Inside Castle Draven. Kael awoke from another nightmare. For the first time in years. He screamed her name aloud. Lyra. The entire palace froze. Servants rushed toward the royal chambers. But before anyone reached the doors, Kael's wolf erupted into a howl so heartbroken that every wolf across the kingdom lifted its head toward the Frost Mountains. And somewhere beneath the palace, hidden inside forgotten catacombs, Lady Seraphine unlocked an ancient iron cage. Two crimson eyes slowly opened in the darkness. A deep voice echoed through the stone. "So," it growled, "you finally broke the soul bond." Seraphine smiled. "No," she whispered. "I've only just begun." The howl of the Black Wolf King did not fade with the wind. It crossed frozen mountains. It echoed through abandoned temples. It awakened creatures that had slept beneath the earth for centuries. Far beyond the kingdom, inside the hidden sanctuary buried beneath the Frost Mountains, every crystal embedded in the ancient walls suddenly pulsed with silver light. The guardians stopped walking. The eldest among them slowly closed her eyes. "He calls for her." No one answered, because every guardian already understood what that meant. The soul bond had awakened. And once awakened, no force in the world could destroy it without destroying both souls connected to it. Lyra drifted between consciousness and dreams. Warmth slowly replaced the deadly cold. The ache in her frozen hands disappeared. She could smell lavender, moon lilies, fresh rain, not snow. She opened her eyes. Instead of endless white mountains, she found herself lying beneath an enormous crystal dome that reflected thousands of tiny stars despite the daylight outside. Moonlight somehow lived inside the sanctuary. Silver rivers flowed beneath transparent stone floors. Ancient trees glowed softly with blossoms that never withered. Everything felt alive. A woman dressed in shimmering white robes sat beside her bed. She looked neither young nor old. Her silver eyes carried centuries of memories. "You've awakened." Lyra immediately tried to sit. "Where am I?" "The kingdom of Lunareth." "I've never heard of it." A faint smile touched the woman's lips. "No one has." She gently placed a hand over Lyra's glowing birthmark. "Because it disappeared 500 years ago." Days passed before Lyra learned the truth. Every answer only created 10 more questions. The Moon Kingdom had never truly fallen. Its people had hidden themselves after the first Alpha Wars, waiting for the return of their final heir. That heir was Lyra. The old guardian guided her through endless halls lined with statues of women whose silver eyes looked remarkably familiar. Queens, warriors, healers. Every statue bore the same crescent symbol glowing beneath the collarbone. Exactly like hers. "Your blood carries moon blessing." Lyra stared quietly. "I only know herbs." The guardian smiled. "You believe healing is weakness." "No. You've simply never understood its true power." She raised one hand. A dying flower resting nearby instantly bloomed again. Another gesture. The flower transformed into glowing silver light before becoming a crystal bird that soared across the chamber. Healing is creation. It restores. It transforms. It balances. She looked directly into Lyra's eyes. "And only the Moon Queen can calm the beast carried inside every Alpha King." Lyra's heartbeat stopped. Kael. Suddenly, everything made sense. Why his rage disappeared when she touched him. Why the strange marks glowed together. Why she felt his pain across impossible distance. She whispered almost fearfully. "The wolf." The guardian nodded. "The Black Wolf King." Lyra lowered her eyes. "I saved him." "No." The guardian's voice became almost reverent. "You awakened him." Far away, Castle Draven slowly descended into chaos. Without Lyra, the king changed. Every day became darker than the last. Royal meetings ended in silence. No music played inside the palace anymore. The servants whispered that the wolves no longer slept at night. Instead, they wandered endlessly beneath the castle, howling toward the northern mountains. Kael rarely left the throne room. His wound had healed. His heart had not. Every report placed before him blurred into meaningless ink. Every decision felt heavier. He no longer dreamed. He relived. Again. And again. And again. The moment Lyra looked into his eyes after he failed to defend her. Not anger. Not hatred. Disappointment. That expression haunted him far more than tears ever could. General Rowan entered quietly. "Your Majesty." Kael never looked up. "What is it?" "The border lords refuse new taxes. They'll obey. The eastern provinces have begun questioning your judgment." Silence. "And?" Rowan hesitated. "The people speak of Lady Lyra." That finally drew Kael's attention. "What do they say?" "They believe the kingdom lost its light when she left." The words landed like another blade. Meanwhile, Lady Seraphine's influence spread through the court like poison through water. One by one, nobles pledged loyalty to her. Trade agreements mysteriously failed. Border conflicts increased. Food caravans disappeared. Every crisis made the king appear weaker. Every solution came from Seraphine. Exactly as she intended. She entered the council chamber carrying new reports. The Northern Rebellion grows stronger. Kael remained expressionless. "Send aid." She smiled softly. "They don't want aid. They want your throne." She watched him carefully. "They believe your judgment has been clouded." A deliberate pause. "By an omega." His crimson eyes met hers. Ice filled the room. "My judgment is not your concern." For a brief moment, Seraphine saw something she hadn't expected. The king no longer trusted her. Not completely. A tiny crack had appeared. That frightened her. Deep beneath the palace, the ancient prison remained hidden behind enchanted doors. Seraphine descended alone carrying a lantern. Heavy chains rattled somewhere inside the darkness. A gigantic silhouette slowly emerged. Not entirely human. Not entirely wolf. Its crimson eyes burned brighter than fire. "You return." Seraphine stopped outside the enchanted cage. "I need your army." The creature laughed. A sound like bones breaking. "And what do I receive?" "The throne." Another laugh echoed through the tunnels. "No." It leaned closer. "I want the Moon Queen." Seraphine's expression hardened. "You know she's alive." "I can smell her awakening." Silence. "Then, I'll deliver her." The beast smiled. "So the game truly begins." Back in Lunareth, Lyra's training had begun. It was nothing like swordsmanship. Nothing like ordinary magic. The Guardians taught balance, breath, patience, emotion. She learned that Moon Blessing responded not to power, but to intention. When fear ruled her heart, the light disappeared. When compassion returned, entire gardens bloomed beneath her fingertips. Weeks became months. The frightened village girl slowly vanished. Her posture straightened. Her voice grew steadier. Her eyes no longer searched for permission. One afternoon she stood before an ancient mirror carved from moonstone. She barely recognized herself. The simple healer had become someone else. Not because her appearance changed. Because confidence quietly replaced self-doubt. The eldest guardian approached. "You're ready." Lyra looked away from the mirror. "For what?" The guardian placed an ancient silver crown into her hands. It felt strangely warm. "To remember who you were born to become." That night, Lyra dreamed. Not ordinary dreams. Memories. She saw a battlefield beneath 2 full moons. An alpha king kneeling before a woman wearing the same crown she now held. She heard ancient vows spoken in a forgotten language. She watched darkness consume both kingdoms. Then, a voice whispered beside her ear, "Find him before the darkness does." Lyra woke abruptly. The crescent mark beneath her collarbone burned brilliantly. Not with pain. With urgency. At that exact same moment, hundreds of miles away, Kael collapsed inside the royal war room. His generals rushed toward him. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth. His wolf roared uncontrollably inside his soul. Not from rage. From longing. He gripped the edge of the war table. A single image flooded his mind. Lyra. Standing beneath silver light. Wearing a crown. His breathing became uneven. "She's alive." Rowan frowned. "Who?" Kael slowly looked toward the northern mountains. For the first time since her exile, hope returned to his eyes. Before anyone could speak again, a terrified messenger burst through the chamber doors. He collapsed onto one knee. "Your Majesty." "What happened?" "The western fortress." The young soldier struggled to breathe. "Has fallen." The room fell silent. "To whom?" The messenger's face turned pale. His answer froze every soul inside the chamber. "An army carrying banners no kingdom has seen for 5 centuries." He swallowed hard. "They march beneath a silver moon." Kael slowly stood. His heart already knew the truth. She wasn't returning as the broken Omega he had failed. She was returning as something the world had forgotten. The Moon Queen. The kingdom had forgotten what hope looked like. For months, every sunrise had brought another funeral, another burned village, another whisper that the Black Wolf King's reign was ending. The banners of House Draven still flew above the obsidian walls of Castle Draven, but they no longer inspired confidence. They inspired fear. Not fear of enemies. Fear that the kingdom itself was beginning to crumble. From the highest balcony of the palace, Kael stood motionless beneath a sky stained with crimson twilight. The wind tugged violently at his black cloak. Below him, thousands of soldiers prepared for war in silence. Black armor. Black wolves. Black banners. An army dressed for mourning before the battle had even begun. General Rowan climbed the final staircase. His boots echoed against cold stone. "They've reached the western valley." Kael never looked away from the horizon. "How many?" "Nearly 60,000. "And Seraphine?" "She marches with them." Another pause. "And?" Rowan hesitated. "The moon banner leads the northern flank." For the first time in weeks, Kael closed his eyes. Alive. She truly had survived. 3 valleys away, silver banners danced beneath the moonlight. Thousands of warriors moved with perfect discipline across snow-covered plains. Unlike ordinary armies, they marched without shouting, without drums, without celebration. Only the whisper of silver capes moving through the wind accompanied their advance. At the front rode Lyra. She no longer resembled the frightened healer who had once entered Castle Draven with uncertain steps. Moon-forged armor shimmered around her like liquid starlight. A silver cloak flowed behind her horse. The ancient crescent crown rested lightly upon her head, not heavy with pride, but with responsibility. The transformation wasn't in her clothing. It was in her eyes. She no longer searched for acceptance. She carried certainty. The eldest guardian rode beside her. "Once we reach the capital." Lyra interrupted softly. "We save the kingdom." The guardian nodded. "And the king?" Silence. Only the sound of hooves pressing into fresh snow. "Finally," Lyra answered. "If there's still a man beneath the wolf." Her voice trembled ever so slightly. "I'll save him too." Deep within Seraphine's camp, torches illuminated a battlefield unlike any ever seen. Thousands of warriors stood unnaturally still. No conversations. No laughter. No fear. Only empty crimson eyes. The creature imprisoned beneath Castle Draven had fulfilled its promise. Broken alpha souls. Ancient warriors consumed by darkness. Every soldier moved like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. Seraphine walked confidently between endless rows of undead wolves. The monstrous alpha beside her towered nearly 8 feet tall. Black horns curved backward from his skull. Silver chains still hung from his wrists despite his freedom. His name had once been erased from history. Now, the forgotten Alpha King known only as Mordrin had returned. He smiled as the wind carried an unfamiliar scent. He stopped walking, lifted his head, closed his eyes. The Moon Queen. His crimson pupils narrowed. "Has awakened." Seraphine smiled. "Then kill her." Mordrin laughed quietly. "No." He turned toward her. "I'll make her watch the Black Wolf destroy himself first." Night fell over Castle Draven. Inside the royal war chamber, Generals surrounded a massive map. Colored markers indicated collapsing borders. Destroyed fortresses. Enemy movements. Kael studied them all without speaking. Rowan finally broke the silence. If we defend the eastern gate, we lose the western villages. If we split our forces, we lose the capital. Every possibility ended in disaster. The room felt suffocating. Then, the enormous wooden doors opened. A palace servant hurried inside. Your Majesty. What? The Moon Army requests peaceful negotiations. Every general erupted. It's a trap. They'll assassinate you. They're allies of unknown origin. Kael slowly stood. No. The room fell silent. They came because she leads them. Nobody needed clarification. Everyone knew who she was. An hour later, the meeting took place inside the abandoned temple of the first moon. Neither army crossed the sacred boundary. Only two figures entered. Kael. Lyra. The temple had stood empty for centuries. Broken pillars reached toward the night sky. Moonlight poured through the shattered ceiling, illuminating ancient carvings of wolves kneeling beside queens. Neither spoke immediately. So much had changed. Yet somehow, nothing had. Kael looked at her. The silver crown. The armor. The quiet confidence. She looked like someone history had been waiting for. Lyra looked back. The scar beneath his collar. The exhaustion beneath his crimson eyes. The loneliness he could no longer hide. For a long moment, neither remembered kingdoms. Only each other. Finally, Kael whispered, "I'm sorry." The words echoed through the empty temple. No king had ever apologized there. Lyra lowered her gaze. You chose your kingdom. I chose fear. Silence. I failed you. His voice cracked. Barely. But I never stopped looking. Lyra felt the old wound inside her heart reopen. Not because she still hated him. Because she wanted so desperately to forgive him. I died that day. She spoke quietly. The girl who trusted everyone. She looked into his eyes. Never came back. Kael closed the distance between them. Slowly. Carefully. As though approaching a wounded animal. I don't deserve another chance. No. She answered honestly. You don't. The word struck harder than any sword. But. His heart stopped. Our kingdom deserves one. For the first time since Blackwood. Their hands touched. The soul bond exploded awake. Silver light raced beneath the temple floor. Ancient symbols ignited across every pillar. Hidden murals glowed after centuries of darkness. The earth itself recognized them. Outside, every wolf in both armies suddenly lifted its head toward the heavens. Then, they all knelt. Thousands. At once. Neither army understood why. Only ancient instinct remained. The miracle lasted only seconds. Then, the first scream echoed across the valley. An explosion shattered the temple entrance. Stone rained from above. Soldiers rushed toward the sacred grounds. Mordran had attacked. His monstrous army flooded through the mountain pass like living darkness. Seraphine rode behind them smiling. So touching. She whispered. That they reunited before dying. Kael instantly stepped before Lyra. His sword left its sheath with a metallic scream. The protective instinct that had been buried beneath years of emotional isolation erupted without hesitation. Stay behind me. Lyra's silver eyes hardened. No. Moonlight gathered around her fingertips. We stand together. For the first time, Alpha and Omega fought side by side. The battle became chaos. Moonlight collided with shadow. Silver magic restored fallen soldiers even as darkness corrupted new ones. Kael moved through the battlefield like a living storm. Every swing of his blade shattered monsters. Every roar sent enemy wolves retreating. Yet Mordran kept advancing. Nothing stopped him. The ancient Alpha laughed while crushing elite warriors beneath his bare hands. You've grown weak, Black Wolf. Kael met his charge head-on. Their collision shook the valley. The force cracked the frozen earth beneath them. Steel clashed against cursed claws. Every strike echoed like thunder. Meanwhile, Seraphine slipped quietly through the chaos. She ignored soldiers, ignored generals, ignored the war. Her eyes remained fixed upon Lyra. One poisoned spear. One perfect opportunity. That was all she needed. Lyra was too focused on healing wounded warriors to notice. Seraphine smiled, raised the spear, and threw it with all her strength. The silver weapon screamed through the air, straight toward Lyra's heart. Someone saw it. Kael. Time seemed to slow. He looked from the spear to Lyra, then smiled sadly, the same way he had smiled the night she pulled a spear from a dying wolf. This time, it was his turn. Without hesitation, he stepped into its path. The silver spear pierced completely through his chest. The impact lifted him from the ground. Blood scattered across the moonlit snow. His sword slipped from numb fingers. The battlefield froze. Lyra's scream shattered the night. Kael! He collapsed into her arms. The crimson light inside his eyes flickered. His heartbeat slowed. Once, twice, then stopped. The Black Wolf King died beneath the full moon, while the soul bond burned brighter than ever before.